called solving right triangles. That has a particular meaning, but lumped in here is other problems. Okay, so if we look through here before we do any of this stuff, this up front is just making sure you're okay with the words angle of elevation and angle of depression. We talked about it already, but there's some pictures there to help you understand that. Angle of elevation is measured from the horizontal line up. You know, how high is your line of sight or whatever. Angle of depression is how low is your angle of sight if you're looking down at something. Okay, there's another picture over here. That's an angle of elevation. That's an angle of depression. Okay, so those are two terms that you should understand. The other term you should understand here is solving a triangle. Solving a triangle is if you're given a triangle and you've got a certain amount of information about it, like this is 25 degrees, or even let's make it easier. This is 20 degrees, this is 90 degrees, and then let's say somebody tells you that this side is 15 here. You can find all the other missing things. Up till now it's been set up where I've said, find that side. And you say, okay, I want the opposite, I've got the adjacent, and I've got the angle. Now it's just going to be find all the missing things.
Also the corner.
What's that? Also this?
Yes.
Absolutely. You got to find all the missing sides and the angle, right? You got to find all the things that are missing. This side's missing, and very good point, this angle is missing. You need to be given three things in a triangle to be able to find other things. If this is missing, you don't have enough information to find it. Okay, but if you're given three things, you can find all the other things. I wouldn't just call all the other things question mark. I would give them names, because then you can write an equation for each of them and find each of those missing pieces. So let's say we were going to do this right now. I want you to find this. We're going to work on this one. So you need to find a place. If you write really small, well, you could jam it in at the bottom of that page, but I would recommend you use a different piece of paper. Okay, and we'll do that solving a triangle. So let me grab that triangle and bring it down here. Okay, so if we're going to solve that triangle, it means all missing sides and angles. Again, it'd be a good idea to label some of the things that are missing, give them a name. If you already have letters on the side here, let's say that it was like that. Those were the three letters on the vertices and the corners. Normally, the way that a triangle gets the sides get labeled, you could do two things. This side here, what could you call that side? If the ends of the two sides are B and C, what could you call it? You could call it BC if you want. But you could also call it, this is what they do sometimes, is they use the small letter of the angle that's across. So since A is across from that, what might you call this? Small a, lowercase a, if you want to do that. And then what would this side be called over here? Oops. That would be called C, right? You could call that lowercase c. Sometimes people like that better using a single letter rather than two letters. You got three things to find. What do you have to find? You have to find A, C, and what else? Angle B, right? So you're probably going to have to do each one of those separately, which would be a good strategy to kind of divide up the page into three things, right? Maybe. Find them all. Make sure you're realizing that you should make it clear what you're finding. So first we're going to find angle B because it's the easiest one. If you already know one of the angles and the right angle, what's left over for this? What do they all add up to? In a triangle, all the angles add up to 180, right? I'm going to just put down angle sum of a, can I just use a little triangle like that, is 180. Angle sum of a triangle is 180. They all add up to 180. So you can just say angle B equals 180 minus 90 minus 20. Or in other words, it's 70, right? If you're really clever, you can say, well, we're always going to be working with right angle triangles here. And if you know this is 90, what are the other two angles going to add up to? They have to add up to 90 as well, right? So you could just say angle B is 90. You could have just said it's 90, take away 20, right? Because the other two angles have to add up to 90 if you always have a right angle. So either way you approach that. So you've already got one of the things found then. That's one of the three things. Next thing maybe to find is A. Let's find side A. So if you're going to find side A, you have to write some kind of a trig equation with A in it. And you got to use the information that's given, right? You got a side and an angle. If this is what you're using here, you're using that angle, that side, and we want this. Those are the ones involved if we're trying to find A. Two given ones and one unknown one. What ratio are we going to use to find that? From that 20 degrees, this is the opposite side. This is the, no, it's not. This is the adjacent side. Opposite adjacent, what is that? It's tangent, right? You can look at that, again, you can look at your data booklet. Opposite, adjacent, tangent, right? Oops. So if you're trying to find that you realize your right tangent of 20 degrees is A over 15. So hopefully, again, we're getting better at solving these now. 15 times tangent of 20 is going to give you A. And if somebody is good enough to use their calculator and let us know what that is, or if you all are, that'd be great. What's 15 times tangent of 20? Should I get this calculator out to do it for you? What'd you get? 5.4. Good. So we got two things now. We got 70 degrees for angle B. We got this side. Notice that this one is approximately equal to. It's not exactly 5.4, right? It's approximate, which is fine. The only thing you want to do is, now, don't use that to find something else. Because number one, why would that be a bad idea? Why is it a bad idea to use this to help find side C? Because you could use it to find side C, but it might be better to always use the given information to find it. It's not the exact number, number one, for sure. Because if you use a rounded off number and use it to calculate something, it's going to be even more rounded off. It's going to be even more wrong. And then the other is, you might have got that wrong, right? And at least then you got this part right. So now we got to look at, now we don't want A anymore. We want this, right? So you got to look at a different pair of sides. And that one is hypotenuse, right? What trig ratio we're going to use to find C? Yeah, you can use cosine because you got adjacent and hypotenuse. Again, from the, keep flipping back to this until you have this kind of ingrained in your memory. Have a look at this, right? Adjacent and hypotenuse. Go back to this. So we got cosine 20 is, which way does this go now? We got 15 over C. When C is on the bottom, remember you're not going to solve it by multiplying like this. It's going to end up being dividing, right? If you want to do it in a few steps, put the C up here, but you don't have to. You can go right to the next step if you want. To get C, you're going to go 15 divided by cos 20, right? Something that's dividing on one side is like multiplying on the other side. We've already seen that. Somebody want to figure that out on their calculator? So you either need to figure out cos 20 first and then divide 15 divided by that, or do it all in one step. 16. 15.96. 15.96. So if we were going to round this off to the nearest, like to one decimal place, I know you want to call it 16.0, right? We should say 16.0. I know it seems weird to put a 0.0 there. But if you just say 16, it looks like it's only accurate to the nearest whole number. If you put 0.0, it shows I actually looked at one decimal place, but it's a 0, just to put it there. Anyways, those are your three things. Okay, it's going to be different depending on what information you're given. Don't try to memorize while I do each of those three things. If you know how to write a trig equation and use it, however the triangle is set up, you can find all the missing things. Sometimes you're going to be given two sides, and you could use the Pythagorean theorem if you weren't given an angle to find the third side. And then you could use a trig ratio to find one of the angles. So you got to really think about what you need to find and how you can find it. When you look through this now, okay, because I'm thinking the other thing in this section here, as you look through, is some more problems that you're going to use trig for. Sometimes you're going to be given the picture, sometimes not. But this is where you need to do more than just there's a triangle like this. Maybe it's hard to see from the photocopy, but person standing there, and they're using an instrument to measure the angle, that angle of elevation. But the thing is off the ground, and if you want the actual height of the thing, it goes down to the ground. So you might have to think about, if this is 1.7 meters off the ground, you got to think about how you can solve that. Don't forget that this is in the textbook, so you can use that as a reference. But then this question's in the textbook, but the solution's not in there, and you should draw your own picture. Okay? I want you to get going on your the working in your study guide. Try and get through most of the examples and your turn stuff, and we'll see where we get to. Okay?